Chapter 329. Rakshasa God appears. TL by Bagelson. Gentle energy lifted Shui Bang, and Tang San smiled. Your Majesty need not be like this. How could I accept such a grand gesture? Shui Bang persisted. Teacher, if you can't, then nobody can. Shui Bang's salute wasn't only for myself, but also for our million troops and the innumerable people of the Heaven Do Empire. His words were deeply sincere, and Tang San heard that Shui Bang spoke from deep in his heart. Shui Bang stood, looking at the gentle and completely free of energy fluctuations Tang San in front of him. So excited his eyes grew dim from tears. Teacher, do you know, just yesterday I was determined to die in battle. Now I can finally say it. When I learned a god had appeared on the Spirit Empire's side, in my heart I had already understood death. I was praying for your return, but when the battle came today I knew prayers are a luxury. But you really came back. As the sea god, you appeared in front of the soldiers when the Heaven Do Empire needed it most, and used your unequal divine power to lead the Heaven Do Empire to victory, breaking Deling Pass. I once longed for a scene like this, but I never thought it would come so soon, so direct. Teacher, I really don't know how to thank you. If you wish, I'm ready to give you the throne. Your Majesty cannot. Tang San reached out and supported Shui Bang with both hands, his face showing a warm smile. He could have stopped Shui Bang from bowing using his power, but he reached out with his hands to show his respect for Shui Bang. Tang San smiled. That the battle today could end in victory wasn't by my strength alone. Everyone here had an extremely important effect, especially the old freak's jade phosphor serpent Emperor Poison startled even me. Dubu Bo said unhappily, little freak, don't think you can tease an old man just because you're a god. I'll beat you up all the same. Tang San laughed out loud. Old freak, what would it matter even if I didn't have a trace of strength right now? My father and uncle as well as Grandmaster are all here. Even someone could beat me up, it wouldn't be you. While speaking, Tang San let go of Shui Bang, turning towards Tang Xiao, Tang Hao and Grandmaster to kneel on the ground. No matter how strong he was, god or not, some things would never change. Grandmaster who he respected the most, and his father's kin would always be his elders. Seeing Tang San kneel, Shui Bang also followed him. This time Tang San didn't stop him, and when Shui Bang knelt, those generals naturally couldn't stay standing, kneeling with a crushing sound. Tang Hao now only saw Tang San, saw his long-haired and jade-faced son, and the expression in his eyes grew a bit sentimental. The most famous Iron Man of the Spirit Master world actually had his eyes filled with tears now. Not so long ago he only wanted to let his son live like an ordinary person, and he now still deeply remembered Tang San boiling congee for him every day as a child. Back then there was only a bit of rice at home, and when Tang San made congee every day he only drank the skim water on top, leaving more of the nutritious rice for him. Back then he wasn't even 6 years old. Now his son had already grown up, and far more outstanding than he ever was. At this moment, Tang Hao didn't feel happiness, but rather that he fell short, that he had failed his son these decades. Everything his son could have today was practically all his own effort. Other people saw his current god-level strength, but how many people saw everything Tang San had paid over more than 20 years to reach here? Tang Hao could completely imagine how behind everything he had today. How many times Tang San had barely survived, how many times he had lingered on the edge of death. Suddenly rising, Tang Hao took one step forward, sharply hauling Tang San from the ground, and forcefully pulling him into a steel embrace. With Tang Hao's nature, he would never be able to say any melancholic apologies out loud, but his embrace and the unshed tears in his eyes already told Tang San far more. Tang San equally held onto his father. He didn't cry, but his lips were closed tightly, his eyes no less excited than Tang Hao. Even though he had lived in two worlds, Tang Hao was still his only father, and a father's figure would always stand tall in the heart of a son. When every child was small, their father would be the first hero in their heart. Tang San was no exception, and even back when Tang Hao was still a drunkard, Tang San had never looked down on him. A son would always want his father's acknowledgement. Dad, you and Mom gave me life. This is a favor I can't repay in all my life. My life belongs to you both, and all I have also belongs to you. Tang San read what Tang Hao was thinking, and used the most direct way to comfort his father. Tang Hao raised his head, grabbing Tang San's shoulders in steady hands, gazing at his son's handsome face, nodding forcefully. You are your dad's pride. Even though Tang San had always worked hard to control his mood, when he heard Tang San say this he could no longer hold back tears from spilling from his eyes. Little San, you are also your teacher's pride of a lifetime. Grandmaster stepped up next to Tang Hao, looking at Tang San. His eyes were a lot more excited than Tang Hao. He taught a god. Tang Hao let go, stepping back slightly, leaving Tang San to Grandmaster. Tang San knelt once again in front of Grandmaster. When Grandmaster wanted to reach out and stop him, his arm was grabbed by Tang Hao. Grandmaster, this you should accept. You have invested far more in Little San than me. I don't qualify as a father, but you are the most outstanding teacher. Without you, Little San wouldn't be what he is today. Grandmaster was caught by Tang Hao. How could he break free? He could only blankly watch Tang San kowtow 9 times to him. Tang San didn't stand yet, raising his head to look at Grandmaster, his eyes teary. Teacher, there's something I've wanted to say for a long time, but I've always felt I was never qualified, because I still hadn't reached the summit of Spirit Masters. I've always waited for this opportunity. Now I've finally broken through rank 100 and inherited the Sea God's divinity. It's time. Grandmaster stared blankly, clearly not understanding what Tang San wanted to tell him. Tang San's eyes were red-rimmed. Teacher, you have suffered alone all your life, and never had children. You've placed all your efforts on me. Even though you aren't my blood-related father, in my heart, you already stand in the same place. Father, please accept Tang San's bow. While speaking, Tang San bowed once again, heavily knocking his head 3 times on the ground. Before he bowed to a teacher, now he bowed to a father. Just like Tang Hao said, Grandmaster had invested far more in Tang San than he. Tang San was also finally at his most glorious moment, and spoke what he had always hidden in his heart. Xiao Wu had silently come up behind Tang San as soon as he first knelt, and now also bowed along with him. Grandmaster stared blankly at Tang San, his whole body swaying. If not for Tang Hao supporting him from behind, he might already have collapsed. His lips trembling, humming, looking at Tang San, he actually couldn't even produce any words. Emotionally slowly raising both hands, he held Tang San's broad shoulders, sobbing silently. His whole life rolled past like a long scroll painting in Grandmaster's mind. When he was small he'd been discriminated against by clan disciples of the same generation because of his variant spirit. Never able to raise his head, he'd cultivated a taciturn character. As he saw those peers grow up step by step, possessing the spirit of the blue light in Tyrant Dragon clan, he didn't know how envious he was. Back then he'd even been closed off. It was also because of this that he quietly left the clan, before he was an adult. Then he met the woman he'd loved the most in his life. That girl came from Spirit Hall, but when she entered his life he didn't know her identity. Even though Grandmaster had a variant spirit, he possessed knowledge the average person had never heard of, and even possessed incomparably deep understanding of twin spirits. Gradually, they fell in love. First love was always the most beautiful, and always unforgettable. In Grandmaster's heart, that remarkable girl was his goddess. Even if they were together, he never dared be intimate with her, for fear of profaning her. That woman wasn't Lu Erlong, but rather the present Spirit Hall Empress, Bibi Dong. They had a whole 2 years together, and those 2 years were the happiest in Grandmaster's life. He told Bibi Dong all about his strange knowledge and thoughts of spirits. Every day together with her was carefree and without worries, so happy. Back then he always believed that Bibi Dong was an angel sent to him to complement his flawed spirit. His angel alone. It was also because of Bibi Dong that he stepped out of the shadow in his heart, becoming certain of his future road, growing passionate about deep spirit research. However, good things don't last forever. The tragedy still continued. One day, the goddess of his heart suddenly appeared before him, coldly telling him that she was only together with him to acquire his knowledge of spirits. She and him were finished. Just those simple words made Grandmaster's heart crumble. That deep wound hadn't healed even now. Even though Grandmaster could find numerous holes in Bibi Dong's words, she really did leave him. He also finally learned her identity, the whole maiden of Spirit Hall, the Supreme Pontiff's successor. He couldn't help believe everything she said. That night, Grandmaster got drunk for the first time, drinking himself unconscious, and wanted to never wake up. Then, he met Lu Erlong and Flender, and it was yet another tragedy. The second woman he liked turned out to be his cousin. When he left Lu Erlong, he only wanted death. Yes, only death. When he thought of ending his life, another thought supported him. Before he died, he would prove to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan that he wasn't useless. From then on, Grandmaster put all his efforts into researching spirits, forgetting about sleep and food. Only in research did he forget his past pain. Until the day he met Tang San, Grandmaster still clearly remembered when he first saw Tang San's innately full spirit power, and judged she had twin spirits. The excitement he felt. He knew that his chance would come. Through this child he would very likely prove himself to his clan. So, Tang San became his disciple. If Grandmaster wanted more to prove himself to his clan at the start, as time passed, Tang San's position in his heart grew heavier and heavier. Even Grandmaster himself didn't know whether he always considered this child as his disciple, or something deeper. Things change as time passes. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan was gone, and as the Heaven Though Empire's imperial tutor he no longer had to prove anything to anyone. But his heart was still empty. Despite being with Lu Erlong every day, the shadow always existed in his heart. Until now, the moment Tang San called him father, the last barriers in Grandmaster's heart finally shattered. He finally found another reason to live after 30 years. For his son. Even if he had to pay with his life, he wouldn't spare it. Good child. Grandmaster trembling stroked Tang San's head, big tears rolling from his eyes, his rigid facial muscles even trembling. To be honest, Tang Hao standing behind him was actually a bit envious, but not jealous. If he had the favor of giving Tang San life, then Grandmaster had the favor of raising him. Teacher for a day, father for life. Tang San wasn't wrong in calling him father. Grandmaster couldn't control his emotions for a long time. It was Lu Erlong who came forward and helped him pull Tang San up and wiped his tears. She was crying too. Who could know Grandmaster's years of suffering better than her? Flender said in a low voice, "Zhou Gang, this is a happy occasion. You should be excited." Grandmaster nodded her, looking at the much taller and already pulled upright by Lu Erlong Tang San, speaking in his special but trembling voice. "Little San, can you say it again?" "Dad." Tang San suddenly stepped forward, tightly hugging Grandmaster, once again making Grandmaster's soul tremble. Good. Even if I die this instant, Zhou Gang's life hasn't been lived in vain. A son. I have a son. Ha 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 ha. Laughing loudly, Grandmaster's face suddenly paled, his laugh also stopping sharply, slowly softening in Tang San's embrace. Tang San was shocked, immediately holding Grandmaster and pressing a hand against his chest. The feeling of a lifetime of misery finally bearing fruit made Grandmaster exultant. His emotions fluctuation, years of pent-up frustration instantly erupting in a moment, making his weak heart rupture at the same moment. His life flowed away like a river breaking its dam. "Dad," Tang San called shocked. Grandmaster leaned against him, his breathing as faint as gossamer. "Little San, thank you, even though my life has reached the end. To die like this, I really never imagined it. Help me kill Bibi Dong. This is my last wish. No teacher, you won't die. In a crisis, he even changed back to that familiar nickname. Tang San's eyes changed. This moment his pupils had turned completely sapphire. Grandmaster's pent-up frustrations burst with his heart. This was definitely a certain death. But don't forget that the one who just knelt in front of him and called him father was a god. Immense sea god power rushed out like the tide, instantly completely enveloping Grandmaster, and moreover freezing him within the divine power, freezing all of Grandmaster's bodily functions in this moment, never changing, and also forcefully maintaining Grandmaster's life. "I won't let anything steal away your life." Tang San spoke in an incomparably firm voice, word by word. The sea god divine power began to enter Grandmaster's body, every portion of divine power becoming as gentle as possible under Tang San's control. After this divine power fused with Grandmaster, Tang San's expression also turned serious. The heart was definitely one of a human's weakest parts. In order to bring back Grandmaster's life, he had to help restore Grandmaster's heart. The frustrated energy Grandmaster felt had made his heart extremely weak, and even though the frustration had been dispelled, the damage was still extremely serious. With a sonorous sound, the sea god raiment reappeared on Tang San. In order to wrest back Grandmaster's life, Tang San was going all out. He couldn't take any chances, and used the most reliable way to help Grandmaster's heart recover. The sea god power slowly contracted, and Tang San slowly infused his purest vitality into Grandmaster. At the same time he raised his right foot, pulling back the sea god raiment there, slashing with a finger. Instantly, a stream of golden blue blood dripped out. Tang San condensed these beads of blood without any waste, then slowly poured it into Grandmaster's mouth, using the sea god divine power to guide it towards the heart. Tang San's right leg had once held the blue silver emperor right leg bone, and even though the spirit bone had already turned into a part of the raiment, the blood in Tang San's right leg had always contained its power. Wildfire burns without end, spring wind breathes life again. After the spirit bone evolved, Tang San's ability not only didn't weaken, but on the contrary strengthened a step further as his body became a god. As a result, blood drawn from his right leg was definitely a panacea. That was the blood of a god. The blood of gods was definitely extremely potent. If Grandmaster were to eat it under ordinary circumstances, his body might explode from the enormous energy it held. But now there was no need to worry about that. Tang San fully controlled his sea god power, dissolving every bit of energy in his blood, infusing it into Grandmaster, every change within Tang San's divine sense control. The method Tang San used was simple and direct as well as extremely effective. In order to keep Grandmaster's blood vessels from being ruptured for too long, he first used his divine power to simulate the heart, joining the ruptured ends together, using Grandmaster's blood vessels to circulate his divine power. Under his meticulous control, Grandmaster's vitality was activated once again, and following the divine power, relying on Tang San's blood and vitality, Grandmaster's heart also slowly grew bit by bit under his protection. In order to avoid the same thing happening again, Tang San was sparing no effort to help all of Grandmaster's veins stabilize even further, the energy in his blood slowly dispersing, the sea god's divine power completely blending into Grandmaster's vein with gentle control. This was definitely a delicate and difficult process. Even as the sea god, Tang San still needed the utmost care. For a full hour the hall was silent, everyone watching nervously. Finally, as the blue light on Tang San's hand slowly dwindled, Grandmaster drew a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes, his face already rosy again. An unspeakably relaxed feeling spread through every corner of his body. Grandmaster clearly felt how his veins were untold times more flexible than before, and even his spirit power had risen at least 5 ranks. Tang San helped Grandmaster stand, stopping him when he wanted to speak. "Dad, you don't have to say anything. Don't get too excited either. Rest properly for a day and tomorrow you will be completely recovered. Then we can speak again." Seeing Tang San's deeply concerned gaze, Grandmaster smiled and nodded. Lu Erlong and Xiao Wu immediately stepped forward to support him. Tang San led Grandmaster to the door of the hall, then turned back around. There was no longer any issue with Grandmaster's body, and he had also left a trace of divine intent on him, so that he could instantly appear next to him just in case anything changed. He still couldn't leave. Even though Jolling Pass was broken, there were very many matters still unsettled, especially Chen Ringshu escaping was like a thorn buried in Tang San's heart. Tang Hao patted his son's shoulder. "It's good if it's nothing. Don't get too worried." Tang San silently nodded. Shui Beng stepped forward, leading Tang San to the main seat. Tang San didn't stand on ceremony, directly sitting down. Since he had become god, his status was entirely different, and he absolutely possessed a superlative position in the Heaven Dou Empire. And after the great battle, his status was supreme in the eyes of the Heaven Dou army. There was nothing inappropriate about Shui Beng's conduct, and refusing would be overly modest. Shui Beng didn't even sit down, just standing next to Tang San. Even so, his expression was proud. Right now in his heart, he considered taking Tang San as teacher was the best luck of his life. Tang San said, "Just now I pursued Chen Ringshu, but I was one step late and couldn't find any traces of her. Very strange. She and those few tidal Douluo seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Even my divine sense couldn't track their location. However, no matter what is said, as long as I oversee this place she won't be able to raise any waves. Your Majesty, what are you preparing next?" Shui Beng said. Teacher, now that we've broken through Jolling Pass, we can say that we've broken open the gate to the Spirit Empire. Even more importantly, we've almost annihilated the Spirit Empire's main Spirit Master force. It will be very difficult for them to organize any further organized resistance. However, Spirit City does after all have a deep background. I believe we can't act hastily. The army has been at war for so long, always eating the wind and sleeping in tents. I'm preparing to let the army rest in Jolling Pass for a few days, and directly contact the Douluo Empire to dispatch an elite unit to counterattack the defending Spirit Empire army over there. Once the Douluo army has also broken through, we can agree on a point relatively midway to form one allied army. Then again break old branches and pull out the rot to thoroughly destroy the entire Spirit Empire, leaving no trouble for later. Listening to Shui Bang, the crowd present couldn't help nodding. This was undoubtedly the most dependable way to handle it, not giving the Spirit Empire any opportunity. The Douluo Empire might not have a power like Tang San, but in terms of military might they were even above the Heaven Do Empire. With their cooperation, the two great armies moving simultaneously wouldn't give the Spirit Empire the slightest chance. At the same time, they might also use this opportunity to destroy the Spirit Empire army blocking the Douluo Empire, thereby weakening the Spirit Empire's overall strength one step further. The remaining war would hold no suspense. Tang San nodded. Then handle it as your majesty wishes. For the Douluo Empire's side, let our Spirit Master Legion and the Tang army go with a few powers. More people would instead be detrimental. Shui Bang gazed at the group of powers in the hall. I wonder which senior would like to go. Everyone spoke practically simultaneously. As your majesty commands. Tang San smiled. Actually, by my view, it's enough for the old freak to go alone. As long as he can quietly infiltrate the enemy army and attack with poison again, they will collapse. Douluo Bo said bluntly. Little San, are you teasing me deliberately? I couldn't do it again. Or don't tell me you'll go together with me to wipe my bum. Shui Bang said. How about this, Schoolmaster Tang Jia? Will you lead the Clear Sky School's 100 disciples as well as the Spirit Master Legion and the Tang army? Tang Jia nodded. As you bid, Tang San said. Boss Dai, you go with Silking and Fatty as well. That will improve our chances a bit. Your Majesty, you might not be aware, but my big brother Dai Mubai is the Douluo Imperial Crown Prince. Shui Bang was suddenly stunned, staring at Dai Mubai, then staring at the deep meaning in Tang San's expression. His heart clenched slightly, already understanding something. Dai Mubai shot Tang San a somewhat grateful glance. Fine then, we'll leave with Senior Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao said. We should not delay, and we suffered no damage today. We leave early tomorrow. We finish early, and we annihilate the Spirit Empire completely. The next morning, Tang Xiao led Dai Mubai, Ju Zilking, Ma Hongdan and other powers, as well as the entire Spirit Master Legion apart from the 7 treasure glazed tile Schoolmaster Ningfengji and the 2 title Douluo, and 10,000 Tang army disciples, and left. Even though the total number was less than 20,000, this was the most elite portion of the entire million-man Heaven Do army, and commanded by 4 title Douluo. These 20,000 were enough to contend with the total Spirit Master legions of the Spirit Empire. With this force joining the Douluo Empire, the battle was naturally easily settled, and in Jolling Pass, Shui Bang gave orders for rest, rewarding the 3 armies. 10 days were allocated for recuperation. According to Shui Bang's plan, in 10 days the Heaven Do army would begin to move, purging the remnant Spirit Empire forces in the surrounding cities, preparing for the 2 empires to join forces. However, before 3 days had passed, there was a sudden change. Report, inside the reception hall, Shui Bang with Tang San, Marshal Ji Long and Grandmaster were just reviewing the attack plan drawn on the sand table, when an orderly suddenly rushed inside and knelt. Shui Bang frowned. Why such a panic? The orderly first glanced at Tang San. To any soldier in the Heaven Do Empire, to be able to see the Lord Sea God close up was an enormous honor. Reporting to your majesty, a Spirit Empire troop is just heading towards Jolling Pass. What? Shui Bang was astonished. Are they coming to throw their lives away? How many are they? How long before they arrive? Reporting to your majesty, the enemy force is less than 100,000. It seems like it's the Spirit Empire force that retreated the day we broke the fortress. They're not moving particularly fast, still more than 100 li from Jolling Pass. They're headed straight here. Tang San stood, frowning. Chen Ringshu? Besides Chen Ringshu, he could think of no reason that would make these Spirit Empire troops return to Jolling Pass. Marshal Ji Long smiled slightly. Your Holiness, maybe they've come to surrender. Tang San said. Whatever the case, let's take a look from the walls. Surrender would be quite likely if it was a small army, but there's close to 100,000 men coming. That's practically the entire Spirit Empire force that fled that day. The party quickly climbed to the top of the walls of Jolling Pass. Jolling Pass was mainly fortified towards the Heaven Do Empire, and this side towards the Spirit Empire didn't have walls as thick and solid, but it was still on the level of a major sea. When the group of Heaven Do Empire powers reached the top, they could just see the opposing Spirit Empire army already slowly approach. It was obvious at a glance that this Spirit Empire army was a mess, looking like a disorderly mob, completely without momentum, let alone the Heaven Do army garrisoned in Jolling Pass. This force might not even be able to overcome 20 or 30,000. Marshal Ji Long laughed. It seems I was right. They should be here to surrender. Aren't you worried the wind will get your tongue? Before Marshal Ji Long had finished, an icy voice suddenly echoed on top of the walls. The sound of this voice might only astonish others, but Tang San's expression suddenly changed. 2 golden blue lights suddenly shot from his eyes. 2 figures shot out from the Spirit Empire's scattered formation, not towards Jolling Pass, but rather straight up into the air. The color of the sky actually changed as they flew up, one half golden red, one half deep purple, shining weirdly on Jolling Pass. That icy voice echoed once again. Tang San, step out and accept your death. Others might not see it clearly, but Tang San clearly saw who those 2 were. Floating in midair, the one emanating the golden red light reflected in the sky was without a doubt the god of angels Chen Ringshu. Her angelic raiment had already completely recovered, and she looked expressionlessly at the person next to her. Next to Chen Ringshu was a malevolent woman entirely covered in armor glinting deep purple, face purple. From her silhouette and presence, Tang San just about managed to discern her identity. It was astonishingly the Spirit Empire Empress, Bibi Dong. Even more astonishing, she should be called Rakshasa God, Bibi Dong. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.